Very quickly before the video begins, I just wanted to say thank you for the support on my Fallout 4 retrospective. I was not expecting it to get near that many views, and I think currently it's sitting at around 90 or so thank you for that. Anyways, enjoy the video. At the Xbox Showcase in 2021, they revealed a game by the name of S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2 Heart of Chernobyl. I was really intrigued by the game because it looked really fun, but there was such a long wait. Then in November, I found this game. What seems like nothing more than a S.T.A.L.K.E.R ripoff on the surface turned out to be one of the best games I've played all of last year. It doesn't look special on the surface, like I said, but when you get into it, the lore, the stories, the characters, it becomes a genuine competitor for S.T.A.L.K.E.R. But the entire time playing, I kept thinking about S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2. And especially given the fact that they're both made by relatively smaller developers, I think they're both going to be competing for my favorite Chernobyl game. Just like any other retrospective I've done, this will not contain any spoilers for the main story. Since I haven't seen any videos on YouTube giving Chernobylite the praise that it deserves, I decided to go ahead and make this video. So why is a small independent game worthy of a playthrough by anyone who enjoys a deep, enticing video game that tells a story that is enriched with amazing characters? Well, in this video, I'm going to tell you why, as we take a look at Chernobylite. One final quick thing before I actually get onto the game itself, I'm still learning the techniques to recording these videos perfectly. Now before we talk about Chernobylite, the topic of the video, I will be talking about S.T.A.L.K.E.R and what led up to the S.T.A.L.K.E.R franchise. That's because you can see clear inspiration all throughout Chernobylite. It all started with the book Roadside Picnic, written by two Soviet authors. I'm not going to attempt to pronounce their names, they're on screen. The book was published in 1971, and in 1979, the book received a movie adaptation called S.T.A.L.K.E.R. The movie is on the older side, being over 40 years old by this point, and you can tell. The first hour or so is very slow with nothing ever happening. The film starts with a yellow haze over the screen, but as they get closer to the exclusion zone, it becomes more colorful. I understand that many people can't stand watching older movies, but this movie genuinely deserves a watch by anyone who enjoys the S.T.A.L.K.E.R games. Then in 2007, S.T.A.L.K.E.R Shadow of Chernobyl released for PC. It featured a man called S.T.A.L.K.E.R, which is an anagram for a bunch of survival-based words, which is pretty cool. I had first heard of S.T.A.L.K.E.R franchise from the reveal of S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2 Heart of Chernobyl. In the process of writing this video, I bought S.T.A.L.K.E.R Shadow of Chernobyl during the summer game sale. Playing it, I can just see how much of an inspiration it was for Chernobylite and everything about it. I would love to make a video about that game one day, but for now I'm focusing on this. I probably will before S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2 comes out. Everything I just mentioned there is integral for this video. Roadside Picnic, S.T.A.L.K.E.R, and the S.T.A.L.K.E.R games are also important to Chernobylite. Those three installments in three different forms of entertainment all created the idea for Chernobylite. Now, the title of this video is probably going to be something along the lines of Chernobylite is not a S.T.A.L.K.E.R ripoff, and that's because even though it's heavily inspired by the games and the movies and that book, it was very obvious to see, it's not entirely fair to just say that's all it has going for it. When I initially played Chernobylite, it was when the game was fairly new, but a few months ago I noticed that I had an Xbox Series X upgrade to it, presumably making it better, right? The first thing I noticed was that the cutscenes work a little bit better in this version. When I played it originally, the cutscenes were laggy and just downright broken. It feels nice to see that they work now, kind of. The thing about cutscenes that are so fun is that they use real footage from Chernobyl. It's just like World at War, featuring real footage from World War II, with people getting buried alive and shot. This game can get a lot of stigma for being an indie game. However, I would argue that some indie games are better than some AAA developed games, especially over the past 10 years or so. And sure, the gameplay and dialogue can be very generic at different times. The story that this game tells and the characters it involves are so amazing. It doesn't suffer from a cliche story of a man avenging his wife. No. The whole plot is kind of sad though. This average man just can't get over what happened to his wife, and that's because he doesn't know what happened. It's been 30 years since his wife just disappeared, and he's still trying to find her to this day. The fact he can't let that go makes you only want to beat the game even more to find out what truly happened to her. A large part of the story is actually told through documents that can be found throughout Chernobyl. In your main base, there are the investigation boards that collect the evidence that you find. After getting enough, you can do investigations to find out more information about Tatiana. However, something about the game does get a little confusing. Well, the whole purpose of the game is to find Igor's wife. So much to the point where there are multiple times where a character will just say, "This is your show," with the word "your" being fully capitalized.
No worries. This is your show. You're paying me for my expertise, and that includes keeping you alive.
That's something I didn't notice until my second playthrough, making it seem as the entire world is just your imagination and the grieving of your lost wife. The gameplay itself is actually very generic, but that doesn't hold the game down for me. One thing about Chernobylite that I love is that it mixes horror and ambience incredibly well. with it not being a horror-based game whatsoever, but the scenery and overall abandoned feeling just lingering with you the entire time. When walking through Chernobyl, you will run into your occasional group of soldiers or a merchant or just other random NPCs. Out of all the different types of horror, this is what I find to be scariest. Instead of a cliche serial killer or jump scares, I often find myself being more scared of seemingly empty world than a world full of zombies or just horrible monsters. There are a few moments of horror that genuinely got me, but they're very far and few between. The gameplay, like I said, is relatively generic. You have the basic shooting mechanics that have been in every game under the sun over the past 15 years or so. However, there's something about the gameplay that is so simple, it just makes it feel so alive. The game runs on a cycle, much like us humans on a normal day. Another thing I love about this game is the difficulty. It's not a hard game per se, but it has hard things within it. Some of the enemies encounters can be a little stressful at first, but then you ease up as you get into a good position. Having to loot an area but you can't due to you not having the right equipment, usually a gas mask. In fact, the hardest thing about this game is deciding what option to choose during an important part. This little independent game that was made by a studio of around 100 people made a game that has a branching storyline that has 9 different obtainable endings. That's something that top studios in gaming can't even do. And depending on which ending you get, it's all based on the choices you make. The choices you make throughout will impact the story, and it doesn't mean that in the same way of the Telltale's Walking Dead games. Now I just want to get this clear. All those games are amazing, with some being better than others, but take the first season for example. It doesn't matter what you do throughout, you're still gonna get that Lee ending. Even though a great ending to a near masterpiece of a game, you still get the same outcome. All the choices in this game can range from a simple hack into a server or finding out more information about Tatiana. Or later on you have the choice to either blow up the Duga radar tower or not. Depending on which you choose, the people back at your base will have a different opinion about you. I would argue that the one place Chernobylite thrives in is the atmosphere. Very similar to the S.T.A.L.K.E.R games, it's not the story that intrigues me, it's the scenery. In S.T.A.L.K.E.R you can see a hanging skeleton out of this one window. Walking around the woods and hearing the wind blowing and the birds flying just makes you feel so alone at all times, but always being watched. In the movie S.T.A.L.K.E.R, the camera is set up in ways that feels like you're stalking these 3 men as they explore the exclusion zone. That feeling of being watched without you knowing is terrifying in games like this. Going into an abandoned house not knowing what you'll find or who you'll run into adds so much character to the story and overall experience. After completing the quest you selected, you are given free reign to explore and scavenge however you like. Using your scanner you can see what is in range of you, materials, weapons, and both herbs and mushrooms that can be used to make food and also healing. There's a part where you can find a clue under a stone slab near a statue, giving an eerie message. It adds to the overall amount of clues you've obtained in order to get information about Tatiana. There are many similarities between Chernobylite and S.T.A.L.K.E.R. I could go in all day talking about that. I could actually make a whole separate video. While playing, I came upon this, and it is a direct reference to S.T.A.L.K.E.R.
Thanks. I guess I never expected a stalker to come to my aid.
He said it! He said it!
This isn't even an important part of the game. It's just a random NPC that you can either save or just let him die. All the characters in this game are so amazing, and to be completely honest, they're the sole reason I kept playing past the 10th hour. The gameplay is very satisfying for the first 5 or so hours. Moving things around, decorating your base, crafting weapon upgrades, getting new attachments for your guns, enhancing the life in the base, and fighting enemies is really fun for the first few hours like I said. But after that, it just feels like rinse and repeat. You wake up, go to the board, probably talk to Oliver on the way, select the mission, complete the mission, return home, distribute the food rations, and go to bed. Rinse and repeat. It's not entirely their fault either. I mean, how much can you really innovate the gameplay mechanics? But they did do something so great while making the game. Just as you're tired of the gameplay and find yourself not feeling as if you're actually doing anything, they made it so by that time, about 5 hours in, you are too far into the story to just quit. The story by this point, mixed with the characters, is so awesome. Each character offers something unique to the game. Each character in this game has a little backstory to them, with no 2 being alike. And even though Igor is the main protagonist, he doesn't say or do anything heroic. He's just a normal guy with an understandable motive. I'm not going to mention the key parts of the story like I said earlier on because I don't want to spoil it. However, the characters fit so well into it. Each character has their own motives, but they put them aside to aid you in your own adventures. I don't mean to sound like a spinning wheel, but I love this story so much. It's probably my favorite part about the entire game, to be completely honest. A few times I touched on the gameplay and how it's very generic, but something that comes along with the mechanics I actually find to be really cool. If you sneak up on someone and kill them, you will see this green haze cover your screen. I had no idea what this was until my second playthrough, and then I found out that if you drink alcohol, the haze will go away. I was confused, but then I realized something that made me love this game even more. When taking down an enemy via stealth takedown, it affects Igor's psyche. Every mission you go on will be marked by a marker, obviously. However, there are also these question marks. These are really important, and I made an effort to clear all of them on my second playthrough. They can be anything from a clue to finding Tatiana, to an Easter egg, or even just trading guns. I found myself having a really hard time trying to put my feelings toward this game into a script. I love this game so much, but for a lot of people this game was rather disappointing. And that's the problem with the S.T.A.L.K.E.R franchise. Although really enjoyable games in their own rights, when Chernobylite was revealed and eventually released, it looked like a spin-off S.T.A.L.K.E.R game. Fans of those games were a little let down when Chernobylite fully released. It is a bit unfair for it though, having this looming pressure of being another S.T.A.L.K.E.R game. And just to show you how much I love this game, I have a very annoying story about it. On my first playthrough, I was within 2 hours of beating it, probably less. But then my game crashed and made it impossible for me to finish it. After 25 hours of gameplay, finding as much evidence as possible, I lost it all. And after that, I put the game down until I played it for this video. Keep in mind, my first playthrough was during Thanksgiving break in November. Even having that hinder my thoughts on the game over the past year, I still really enjoy this game. Everything from the scenery to the story, the characters, the mechanics, everything meshes so perfectly. I truly believe this game is a must-play for fans of the S.T.A.L.K.E.R franchise, and even anyone who enjoys a deep narrative experience. There are DLCs for the game that you can buy that just add different skins or new weapons, but I'm not going to talk about those. There are seasons as well, but the whole purpose of this video is to show what the game was at launch. This game made me enjoy the Chernobyl disaster even more, as horrible as that sounds. Chernobyl has been the setting in so many great games. S.T.A.L.K.E.R, COD 4, Chernobylite of course, and it's a setting that not every game could pull off. And I think that's why it's such a perfect setting for a game, is because it's rarely used. After getting this video done, I'm now looking forward to playing the entire S.T.A.L.K.E.R franchise, making a video on the first game, and getting ready for S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2, Heart of Chernobyl. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching.